We're live. Thank
Good
you.
morning. Welcome to the 10:30 MBD meeting.
Good morning, Counselor.
Do not adjust your screens, I really look like this. Item number one, I call this meeting to order.
You gotta use your teacher voice.
I call this meeting to order. Thank you. Item number two, Nick Annette Miller, appointment to the Arts Commission of the City of Tulsa, replacing Brandon Rule. Term expires December 14th, 2026. And she comes from Council District 9. Nick, are you here?
Yes.
Oh, yes, come to the table, please. Good morning, how are you? I hope you're going to use your playground voice, because you're pretty quiet. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and it looks like you're replacing Brandon Roll. Why you want to serve on this commission?
Yes, not only am I a practicing artist, but I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit organization called Lola Lip, which is to elevate American Sign Language programs at cultural institutions. So I come from a background of having family members and friends in the disability, deaf and hard of hearing community. And I'm also coming from a background of a marginalized community, as my family are Vietnamese refugees. And so I'm proud to be here as a representative of arts in a variety of marginalized communities.
Well, thank you for being willing to serve. I see your counselor isn't here, so.
She's still good, I think it's good.
Counselor, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you thank you. It's good to see fresh new faces in the Arts Commission. I'm excited about the youth that's coming on board, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you. Okay, your confirmation will be on our May 7th, 5 p.m. agenda. You're more than welcome to come and speak if you're so inclined. You don't have to be there, but we appreciate you coming in today. Thank you for being willing to serve. Okay, item number 3, Donald Rose Jr., appointment to the Greater Tulsa Area African American Affairs Commission, filling the new Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce seat. Term expires May 1st of 2028 from Council District 3. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're excited to serve on this commission.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking me to do that. If it's okay, can I read from my phone?
Please do.
Thank you. So thank you for considering me for GTAC. A little bit about me. I'm a native Tulsan and a tenured U.S. Army veteran. I currently serve as a board member for the Oklahoma HIV and Hepatitis Planning Council and in HIV Oklahoma. I recently have been appointed as the Director of Operations for the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce. And at present, the chamber is undergoing a strategic planning process where we're calling a radio silence period as we work to revamp and refocus our organization. Our goal is to strengthen our commitment to the community by delivering a comprehensive suite of services and programming, providing uncommon access to resources and opportunities. We operate under 3 key pillars: economic development, entrepreneurship, and preservation of history and artifacts. So I'm honored to be a part of the work and look forward to contributing to GTAC and the mission. Thank you for having me.
Counselors?
Thank you so much, Donald, for your willingness to serve. I think you would be a great addition to GTAC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Well, the Army goes rolling along. I'm a
Yes.
Army vet myself. So.
Thank you so much.
Yep, we're brothers in arms. So thank you for being willing to serve, and thank you for coming in today. You also will be on our May 7th, 5 p.m. agenda. You're more than welcome to come and say a few words if you're so inclined. If not, you don't have to be present. So thank you for coming in today on this rainy day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yes.
Okay, item number 4, rezoning application Z7799 from RS3
I
to
don't know.
excuse me, from RS3 and AG to OL with an optional development plan for property located at the southeast corner of 101st Street South in South Florence, requested by Kyle Engineering. Let's see. TMA's PC voted 8-0 to approve. The optional development plan was added after TMA PC approval. Morning, Nathan.
Good morning, counselors. Nathan Foster with the Planning Office. So yeah, this is Z7799. A little bit of a recap. You guys did talk about this a few weeks ago at your meeting. There were some neighbors present. This came out of TMAPC with a recommendation of just OL zoning, like a straight OL change from the AG and RS3 that's there today. And before it got to council, there were a few neighborhood meetings where some concerns were discussed, primarily from neighbors to the west, but there were also neighbors involved down to the southeast. Those conversations led to adding an optional development plan to the project. The optional development plan included a range of things, some of those being restrictions on uses, some additional setback requirements, and then some screening and landscaping buffering, signage restrictions, and then some lighting restrictions as well. At the last meeting where you all discussed this, there were still some kind of contentious issues between the neighbors and the developers, some disagreements about what would be in the development plan. Since that time, Councilor Archie, Councilor Lakin got everybody together once again for a meeting in the council office to kind of discuss the development plan, which led to the version you guys have today that was in your backup material, which at this point I believe everyone has agreed to. Both the developer as well as the neighbors have said they're welcome to the development plan. So the biggest change that came from that was the elimination of the residential use category for 3 households or more on a single lot. So that included apartments, mixed-use buildings, cottage houses. Those have all been taken out of the development plan and pulled back to, the neighbors did say they were acceptable to duplexes, townhomes, and some of the other residential categories that remain, but they primarily were wanting to avoid that most dense category of residential uses. All the other supplemental regulations are the same as what was presented previously as it relates to the screening and the setbacks. I think those were all kind of agreed on prior, so that last piece was really just the use discussion. And at this point, I think everybody has agreed to this draft. So.
Councilor Wells?
No, but if you guys want to provide more context first.
Sure, I will say that this new ODP represents a lot of hard work and a lot of collaboration between the developers and HOA folks, residents. In the beginning, there was a lot of division. Folks were on either side. Some wanted no development, some were really stringent and strident about not wanting to see anything. And so our, excuse me, our developers came and were willing to meet and talk, and in this last meeting, it was very productive. I'll give a kind of a funny deal at the end, because we're talking about details. And when I was an elementary school teacher, you know, you have to check for understanding. Does everybody understand what we're doing? So we did this deal where we thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you don't, or thumbs in the middle. And there were a few thumbs in the middle, and that last like 5 minutes of conversation from both sides, everybody got their thumbs up. It was like, this is wonderful. So I want to encourage, you know, you all to support this. I'm going to support it, and just neighbors working together.
That's great.
Thank you.
I'm glad it-
Yeah, I would add just slightly, everybody had to give a little bit in order to get to this place where everybody could be in agreement. So I'm grateful that the neighbors on the west gave a little bit, the neighbors on the southeast gave a little bit, and the developers did as well, to get to a place where this property can be developed and still has some residential uses and some office light uses. You know, it says office light, it's going to be predominantly office light, but there still could be some other things that are permitted within that zoning category too.
Go ahead, Counselor, your turn.
Yeah, this is interesting because I'm facing, I think, a similar type of rezoning circumstance in a neighborhood in my district. And I still have significant concerns with limiting or stigmatizing multifamily housing. And I'm struggling with the dynamics, though, of if a developer has really come to a mutual kind of agreement, or, you know, there's been a lot of, you know, I always appreciate that kind of a compromise where people land in a spot that they are comfortable with, like what to do if a developer's, you know, selecting to do that with the property. Though I do have long-term concerns, whereas each rezone comes before us. I just want to make this like, I think for like this case and seeing something similar playing out in a neighborhood that I am working with, I can appreciate if a developer is like, hey, I'm willing to compromise in these ways, let's move forward. I still take issue kind of with the core concerns or argument against multifamily. My concern, though, is the precedent still that we're setting repeatedly where we belabor each of these rezones, bogged down in details and ODPs, and what that can actually long-term do to property values when we make things so restrictive on all of these properties as we do rezones. I worry about kind of just the long-term patchwork of what we're creating zoning-wise. I just want to name those concerns. That's not me saying I'm either, I think, supporting or opposing the rezone or the compromise that's been reached. I just really am concerned with our repeated belaboring of each of these and how in the weeds and drawn out it's getting, and how that both can harm construction timelines and then overly restrict these patchworks of properties in really inconsistent ways. So I just wanted to name all of that.
Counselor, did you go?
Do I look like I do?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I agree completely with Counselor Bellis, and that these zoning issues coming up in specific areas of Tulsa really limit the ability for people to choose areas that they want to live. And I find that disheartening, and it's almost a legal way of segregation in my mind, and I know those are strong words. I also consider it much like redlining, where certain zones were incorporated in certain areas of cities and did not allow for certain income levels to live. And so I find it concerning as well that the zoning, and it gets limited to specific areas of Tulsa, and I find that reprehensible. Those are just my comments, my opinion.
Counselor Dr. Wright.
I echo Councilor Bellis' sentiment, and I think we as a council, if we're really going to see the housing strategy executed timely, need to come to an understanding on these zoning applications overall. I have done just what you all have done, where it's a big pushback, absolutely not, and found some kind of middle of ground where people give things up and get things, and so for that I appreciate it. And I think it's our job as leaders to really help our constituents understand if they don't want to see encampments, and they don't want to see homeless people, and they don't want kids bouncing around because they don't want truancy in our public schools, evictions are part of that. And so part of, I think, the continued work we have to do is not just kind of keep pointing at the problem. You mentioned that on our town hall the other night, but really start talking about these are the solutions, and those solutions also include having some higher density in parts of your community where maybe it was open fields, or in my community, trees have come down so we can widen roads because there's so much more on the roads, and that just comes from growth. So it's a hard conversation to have. I appreciate that. I feel like before, my understanding was the developer wasn't as open to the conversation, and so giving this extension on time got more engagement into a happy place. So it's still going to have an opportunity for residential, but just single family and duplexes, correct?
And townhomes.
Townhomes is still alive as well.
So what are the?
And you can do mixed use, so you can have retail, you can have something on the bottom, office light on the bottom, and
So this draft of the ODP did exclude mixed-use buildings.
Okay, yeah.
So mixed-use buildings it's a building type that's classified in all three of these residential use categories. So you can have a single household in a mixed-use building, 2 households, or 3, but that use has been taken out of the optional development plan currently. So the the way I understand it, the neighbors really were focused on 3 or more households on a single lot. They wanted that use stricken out. I believe, based on some emails that were just coming around at the end of last week, they would have still allowed mixed-use buildings with a single household or 2 households, which we could add back into the ODP, but they're currently not in
So
there.
what does that look like?
So that would be, you know.
Like a
it-
retail space downstairs and an apartment
Yeah,
upstairs?
yeah, so if they were included with single household and 2 households, you could basically incorporate a single apartment unit into an office building or into a retail building or 2, but you would be maxed at how many dwelling units could be in that mixed-use building.
So from a housing perspective on this lot, what is the density that could exist there if this passes as submitted?
So probably out of these building types, the
Yeah.
highest density you could accomplish would be through townhomes, because the townhome provisions allow you a smaller lot that you can, basically each townhome has to be on its own lot, and they can be reduced down to, I believe it's like a 40-foot wide versus like a duplex is required to be a 50-foot wide lot. So,
And do we know how many would fit on the
I
space?
don't.
Okay.
As we talked about before, there's a significant amount of this property that's
A
completely
creek or
floodplain,
something.
floodway, that would probably not be developed in any way. The developer had previously shown some layouts that could have done townhomes along the eastern boundary. I think at that point, he had maybe 13 or 14 townhouses shown whenever he presented that concept. But going back, I mean, the initial proposal from the developer, which is, I can't change to the next here. There we go. This is the original layout of lots that they presented, and this is the preliminary plat that was approved by the planning commission. This was fully intended to be an office development. Their original concepts did not have any residential uses in it, but when the discussion around the development plan started, they were, adamant they wanted to keep their options open
Sure.
because they did not necessarily have users for all of these lots, which is where the conversation around the housing types really started as to what could possibly go here if it were just straight OL zoning, which did include apartments as a use type. But so far, they've moved forward by getting a preliminary approval with this layout, which they intended to be office lots. They've not shown any townhome lots or
Right.
residential lots.
And I think last time, if I remember, we were not 100% sure that they had developers to come on the space. It was more about getting the land ready
Right.
for interest
Yeah.
to arrive.
They had, this was back in December, they had one user that they said they had an orthodontist or
Sure.
something that wanted to take the most southern southeast lot in this development, but the others were going to be basically marketed to other office users that they could come in and use them. So I think a lot of that is what led to the conversation around them still wanting flexibility about what types of uses could be allowed here. And so, but they've, for all intents and purposes, they've stated office users as their main focus.
Thank you. I think I would be open to having another agenda item in the future where we can sit and talk about some of these things that come forward, like increased traffic, it's gonna lower our property values and really myth bust some of that. I know that the planning office gave us a presentation, late last year about the study that they did about who's actually living in Tulsa, who's renting, how many cars are actually coming into those properties, those kinds of things, because even with the announcement yesterday the mayor made about Vista Shadow Mountain, you already see the rhetoric of like, this is why we need to have no apartments and only single-family households. And we know that that is not going to get us where we need to go as a community now or in the future. So I think there's some education we need to do for ourselves so that we can help the rest of the community understand that cul-de-sac neighborhoods with 2,000 to 3,000 square feet is not going to be the only choice for our city. It can't be. And it's going to, Councilor Dutton's point, it's going to have to be all over the city so that people can live and work and play in the parts of town that make sense for them as individuals and not totally restricted by their income to one part of town. So, tonight, do you anticipate like people coming to still speak on this, or you feel like everyone kind of got to that thumbs up
I
place?
feel like if people come speak on it, they'll be speaking in support of it. You know, what I don't know if everybody remembers, but there were 5 people from the neighborhoods who came and spoke, and they amazingly, were from different neighborhoods. And so we just said, all of you now are on the task force and the committee, and they came and they worked through the situation and agreed to the terms that are there to be for us right now.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
and one was an HOA president, maybe two were HOA
Yeah,
presidents, Sally
Benton and Sally, yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
And I will, well.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Okay. With respect to this property, just generally, you know, it is being designated office light. And I think, to Counselor Bingle's point that he made, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you know, a lot of people will see office light and expect office light. And I know what the zoning code says and things like that. So I think we did get to a good place where it can be reasonably expected that office things, light office elements will go onto this property, but it does allow for those other uses. They could have applied for higher density residential on this lot, if they wanted to, and then we could have grappled with whether or not we wanted that. So to Counselor Dutton's point, you know, that would have been a different topic compared to the topic that is before us here, where we're trying to just balance what office light is and what office light really isn't. So I'm happy where we got, and I believe we balanced the needs of the developer and the needs of the residents as well, just like we did at 36th and Yale, just like we did in your district whenever we had various things come up too. So, thank you.
This is a clarifying question, which again, those were all incredibly belabored, and we just keep doing that, and I feel like we just cannot continue on that path when it comes to solving housing issues. So with what's going into the ODP, this might be, I'm not sure if this is a planning question, or I just wanna make sure I understand. So we're preempting office to residential conversions in the future for this property? Is that
Yeah, I mean, sure.
correct?
If,
Not in every way.
I mean, it could be converted to one of the types that's still allowed, but as far as like an office building becoming an apartment building, it would require them to return to the planning commission and the council to make a change to that development plan, if this is what is ultimately adopted, because these standards would go in the ordinance, so.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful.
Anybody else?
Can
Go
I
ahead,
just
Jack.
ask a clarifying question? Is the ODP that's in backup dated 4/11, is that the current
Yes,
ODP? So
yeah.
you can make reference to the ODP that's currently in backup in the motion when it's made tonight.
Okay. That's good.
So everybody, yeah, I'm gonna take, since if everybody else is finished, I'm just gonna say, you know, to Counselor Dexter Wright's point, multifamily, I have one that's gonna be at about 137th and 21st Street, 197 units. And it's gonna be next to a mature neighborhood. They have concerns about, you know, some of the things that they see in East Tulsa with some of these multifamilies. There's realities associated with multifamily developments, but I think we can assuage some of those concerns by meeting with the developers and the communities and having those developers come to these meetings and listening to those concerns and kind of making these sorts of compromises. I will say this, to your point, Counselor Bellis, there are certain times where I feel like we do need to go through this process, especially when we talk about sales tax shortages and we have developments that are bordering other communities where we're gonna lose sales tax to those communities, but we still have the liabilities of public safety and infrastructure. I have one that's about to come up, and I'm going to beleaguer that conversation, because I feel like I have to protect our city and not stand up the economy of other economies. So that's just my point. I do support multifamily housing. I don't think it should be in 3 specific districts is where I feel it's, well, 4, counting yours, because you have some too.
I have the most.
Yeah, and you have some as well. We all have some,
too.
but I think in certain areas
And there's more
that
coming.
the conversation has a little different tone based upon where it's at and the price point. So we all have to share the love, and we're not gonna get there if we don't feel like it belongs in our district, so. Do you have one more point?
Yeah, I would just add, so, you know, we did implement a multifamily inspections process, which is fairly new, 2 years old. We could use more of that so that we could get some of these properties that everyone cringes over to the baseline that's required by law, and maybe that would also help people understand, like, it's bad property owners, it's not the type of property. And obviously, we see more of it in a bigger development than like in a single family residence, but they exist across the city. So from a code enforcement perspective, we've got the laws now. We've amended Title 24 and 25 and 2023. We've stood up the proactive inspections. We probably need to scale it up because we have 65,000 units across the city now, and we're trying to add 6,000 more in the next 3 years and 13,000, you know, of all types. So I think that's also this idea of even luxury apartments eventually are not going to be. And I think that's because we didn't have the proactive element, and we had some laws at the state and local level that were not either being enforced or not strong enough. So I think there's a culmination of things coming in here, and again, I just think as we continue to talk about how we're going to solve issues for today and the future, some of what Councilor Bellis is talking about, absolutely, but also let's take care of the housing stock we have now and hold folks to account so that we're not penalizing future developments based on past bad actors. So that'll be an interesting discussion later today when we look at our budget proposal.
So, I'm glad that you brought that up, Counselor Dr. Wright, simply because I was going to bring it up as well, that we are not holding the landlords and the developers accountable for these apartments, and they're putting the onus on this type of zoning issue to fall onto us. And we do have everything in place, so I appreciate that a lot. We just really need to do our due diligence to make sure that those people that are investing in multi-housing units are doing it correctly. And that we're not using the same property stakeholders over and over throughout the city that are creating this backlog.
Yeah, it seems like if we could get
Violations.
on the code enforcement side, maybe we unburden the zoning
Yeah.
and permitting stuff that has become that like extra layer of protection because we weren't doing the enforcement the right way.
I agree.
Did I shake the bee's nest here?
Well, it's an ongoing conversation.
No, I just wanted to add in, I think I just want to name as one other layer, per your point, it's making sure that there's this better precedent set with existing units and that proactive enforcement that could assuage those concerns, paired with what I've been finding recently in these conversations is some of the things you're hearing you mentioned like those safety concerns people may surface, whether it's related to traffic flooding, all these things. And some of that is also making sure that we're helping the public understand like the permitting process and once this is rezoned, here are all the criteria and things that this actually has to meet. Like a developer might be like, I want to do all of this, and that may not be realistic or the reality once they look at floodplains or infrastructure or all of these things. So I think there's also an opportunity, and I think that's something we could probably use more support in, being able to lay out and document for folks, but to actually be able to help constituents feel that they can trust that even when a rezone happens, there's these next steps in a process that are diligent.
Checks,
And
yeah.
there's other checks that happen. And I think there's, that's not something that's always been strongly communicated, so.
Anybody else? All right. Good discussion. All right, let's move on to item number 5 then. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget to transfer available appropriations of let me read that again, $301,413.76 between projects within the Tulsa Public Facilities Authority 2023 Stormwater Bond Sub-Fund for Stormwater Maintenance and Operations Building. Morning, Jared. Morning.
Counselor? Jared Moore from Budget. This is a council transfer, moving that $1.3 million out of the Comanche project to the stormwater facility project. The stormwater component of the Comanche Envision project is nearing completion, if not almost done. And just one important caveat I did want to point out was because these were TPFA revenue stormwater bonds, their use would be restricted to stormwater purposes, and since all of those elements have been finished with Comanche, they can't be used to fill in any other gaps in the project, so they're going to be reassigned to this facilities project where they will be needed.
Any questions or concerns? Okay.
Thank you much.
Moving on to item 6. Thank you, Jared. Resolution directing the filing of the annual assessment roll for Kendall Whittier Improvement District, number 1 assessment roll with the Tulsa City Clerk, setting June 11, 2025 as the date of the public hearing on the assessment roll, and directing that this resolution and notice of the public hearing be published 2 times. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Samantha Extance, Destination Districts Manager for the City of Tulsa. And I support the Kendall Whittier Improvement District Board. The Improvement District was created in 2022. It'll expire in 2027. This resolution is just so that we can file the annual assessment for this upcoming fiscal year. There are no substantive changes to the roll. It's the same as last year. Unlike other business improvement districts, the amount is fixed, so the amounts that business owners pay year to year is the same. We did that intentionally so that business owners could plan for that each year. And the board has been working through the services that they provide, so landscaping and trash removal, that's been very heavy, particularly with a lot of the trash and debris generated by the encampments that are in the area. Their beautification efforts, they're actually partnering with Kendall Whittier Main Street, and Kendall Whittier Main Street had received a $260,000 incentive award to put in public art and wayfinding signage in the district, and so the Improvement District is following up and providing some landscaping and some lighting around those elements later this year, so that we're essentially using the money smartly for both that award and then for the Improvement District dollars.
Great. That district is really improved and been revitalized significantly since I lived there in the mid-90s, so it's looking really good. So any other questions or comments? Was that-
No, I was
was
giving
that just a thumbs up?
Just
Okay.
very excited
Okay.
about the business improvement
All right,
districts.
well, thank you, Sam. Okay, item, so you're staying here for
Yeah.
number 7 as
7
well?
through 10.
7 through 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Item number 7, resolution supporting the participation of the Historic Greenwood District Main Street Incorporated in the 2526 Oklahoma Main Street Center with the goal of revitalizing the historic Greenwood District community. Go ahead, Sam.
Do you want to read them all?
Do you want me to just read them all?
Yeah, I could just read a list.
Okay.
You could just
And then item
announce.
number 8 is the Kendall Whittier Main Street. Item number 9 is East Tulsa Main Street, which includes the Global District.
And drum roll.
And number 10, is this in West Tulsa?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Route 66 Main Street, historic Route 66. Wait, it doesn't mention West
Well,
Tulsa.
I mean, Southwest Boulevard.
I asked about
Okay.
it, it is.
Okay, go ahead, Sam, I'm sorry.
All right, no, you're good, thank you so much.
Yeah, there's no clarification in there specifically.
Yeah, it's their official entity name, so which doesn't always match the name of the district.
Okay.
So these resolutions before you are just essentially enrolling, or the city agreeing to participate in the Main Street program for each of these 4 main streets for the next fiscal year. As part of this process, I always give you all an update, so that annual update, just a reminder, our Destination Districts program was established in 2019, and our mission is to create vibrant places where people want to be, in part to attract and retain our talent across our city and make people feel more connected to the places that they can experience. We have 4 official designated districts in Tulsa that are main streets, and we'll kind of go over them now. So Route 66 Main Street, this was established in 2007. It's in Council District 2. Their executive director is Teresa Flouché. So their numbers for the last year, so they saw just over 9 million in private reinvestment last year. And to date, they've seen over about 456 million in their district. They've logged a lot of volunteer hours, just over 2,000 for this year, and over 32,000 for their whole life cycle. They've had 16 building rehabilitations in the last year. That's a high for them, which is great. They've had about 135 since they began, and then they've had 5 new businesses open in the last year. Some other highlights from Route 66 Main Street. I am so proud of them. So I get to brag on them for a little bit. They were awarded an Oklahoma Route 66 revitalization grant for $225,000 to build a dinosaur roadside attraction in Howard Park. This is a very competitive grant, and they were awarded, and it was one of the favorites out of that grant cycle for that year. Roadside attractions, of course, are beloved, but they also generate a lot of economic development and sales tax revenue around them. So we're excited to have that on the west side of Tulsa. They also have 2 new Route 66 attractions that the Main Street has supported in the last year. So they now have the Route 66 Christmas Tree Farm and Smokey's Motorcycle Museum. 2 new things that we didn't have previously. They've installed 2 new neon signs at their office and are doing improvements to that, and they're continuing their big fundraising gala, which supports a lot of these improvements. Next for them is really the implementation of that dinosaur roadside attraction. We're hoping that that will be in place spring of next year. They are going to be implementing some wayfinding signage throughout their district to help people stay in their district to know when they're there. Of course, they have their own centennial plans, events, and other projects. And then looking even forward from that, prepping for the streetscape project that was funded through IoT3. And then they're continuing their improvements and fundraising for Howard Park. They really want to make that a destination park. There's a lot of community pride from the west side in Howard Park, and so that is their plans. For Kendall Whittier Main Street, they were established in 2010. They are in Council Districts 1, 3, and 4. Their executive director is Yvonne Markham. And their statistics for the last year, so they had about $790,000 in private reinvestment last year, just over $175 million to date since they were established in 2010. A little over 1,300 hours in volunteer hours, about 28 or 23, sorry, my eyes are so bad, 20 in program to date for volunteer hours, about 5 building rehabilitations in the last year, 200 to date. I think they have the highest out of all of our main streets for building rehabs. And then 12 businesses have opened in 2024 in Kendall Whittier, and about 116 to date. Some of their highlights from the last year. So like I kind of talked about already with the Improvement District, they were awarded a $260,000 incentive program award, and that is for placemaking, wayfinding signage, adding neon signage and lights to the Whittier Square structure, where they have a lot of their events, and then some public art. They've launched a new district brand and website, a Coffee Before Business series to connect property and business owners more together and let them collaborate. And they're working with the Tulsa Girls Art School and the fire department to create fire hydrant art. This was Councilor Q's project, so they're going to be the first district to implement that, which is very exciting. And then they've switched their annual arts event to the spring from the fall. So next up for them is really implementing all of those projects from that $260K award. Continuing their expansion of their services to the northern part of their district. Of course, they're on the original alignment of Route 66, so they also have centennial plans and projects. They're working on a food truck park project, and they have some future construction coming, so they're going to be supporting businesses that are impacted at that intersection of Lewis and Admiral. Greenwood, they were established in 2020. They are in District 1. They are actually currently hiring for their executive director, so more on that. Last year, they saw just over $9 million in private reinvestment. To date, it's just over $28 million. They had 301 hours logged for volunteers, just over 1,700 to date. About 3 building rehabilitations, 14 total since 2020. 4 businesses have opened, 16 to date. Some highlights here, so they've completed their mini master planning planning process for V.S. Roberts Park. They're looking to beautify that and improve it, so adding other amenities for the community. They've collaborated with Be Good Development on their Advanced Developer Academy 2.0, which is actually currently happening still. They are continuing the installation of the Greenwood Go project. That's an art and placemaking and health initiative. That included 4 new murals, so there are more things to see in that district, and they're spread out, so you're exploring more of the district than you were before. They've hosted a number of inaugural events last year, so they did a holiday market, an HBCU car show and send-off, and a back-to-school bash, which provided backpacks to kids. And then the big thing for them is they are hiring and onboarding a new executive director, so that's really what's happening now and what's happening next. We'll be training that person, implementing their mini master plan for V.S. Roberts Park, and completing the rest of the Greenwood Go implementation plan that they have. And last but not least, the Global District, also established in 2020. They are in Council Districts 5 and 6. They have a new executive director, Alejandro Garcia. He was previously their small business specialist.
Oh, I was
And
trying to
he's
figure out the
promoted.
context of the picture. Sorry.
It'll make sense when I get to
Okay.
highlights. Yeah. So, last year they had just over $1 million in private reinvestment, about $10 million to date, 469 volunteer hours, just over 2,000 since 2020. They've had 5 building rehabs and 2 businesses open, about 13 businesses opening and 18 rehabs in the last hour since they've started in 2020. So the picture actually is because the former executive director, Louisa Krug, was named a 2025 Pinnacle Award winner. And so we're really proud of her. Just wanted to shout out Louisa if you're watching. Congratulations. Thank you so much. She's still very involved in the Global District. Very excited for Alejandro and the energy and ideas that he's bringing to the role. Next up for them, so they are implementing their semi-permanent plaza at NAM High. And so if you all remember the Square at NAM High project that happened a couple of years ago, this is a more permanent version of that. And that is really to just give people another third space, create more green space and more walkability in the area. They completed their national Main Street transformation strategy and achieved accreditation, which is a huge milestone for any Main Street, so that's great. They completed a retail study with a national company called And Access, and that was really to understand and tackle commercial vacancy in their district, and so they now have a plan for that. They've continued their small business support through the many programs that they have, so Connect Local and Grow Global programs, as well as their Entrepreneurship Showcase, which is an education series for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And what's next for them? They are completing a 21st Street underpass mural that's going to act as a gateway into their district. The Plaza Santa Cecilia Plaza project is continuing with their fundraising and development. And then they are expanding their Hispanic Heritage Day event, so stay tuned for that big event. And one thing that I'll also mention, in partnership with the Global District, so when they were doing that retail study with And Access on vacancy, they discovered another need that actually expanded further out to the rest of Tulsa, and that was that there's a lot of illiteracy among entrepreneurs and kickstart small businesses. So one of the things that we as the city collaborated with And Access and the Global District on was the creation of this Tulsa Lease and Design Guide. So this is something that's online, it's available to anyone, and it walks people through the different types of leases, what they should understand about building out their space, some design tips. That way, everyone knows what they're getting into when they're getting into a lease, and then also how to get out of a lease and what implications there are when you terminate your lease. So that's a new resource that exists, and I'm very proud of all of our our development services and code enforcement and many other city colleagues who put in the time to develop this and make it really meaningful. And so it also goes into permitting a little bit, so it demystifies a lot of processes that might seem confusing, especially to a business owner who's just excited about, selling you a really good tamale or a book. So program highlights.
But those are both really good things.
Yeah, they're both really good, and they're great together too. So we held our second annual Destination Districts Retreat. That's where we bring together community leaders from emerging districts and established destination districts to just do some professional development, share their ideas. We had about 45 attendees at this event, so it was really great. We this year launched our Commercial Corridor Safety Guide, which I'm super proud of. It's an online guide that outlines best practices, tips, and resources on a number of issues that we continually heard about from our community leaders in districts, from businesses. So this provides them with things like how to remove graffiti safely from things on your property, to what to do if there's a medical emergency in your business, how to design your space so that it's preventing crime, lots of things. It also takes some of our tip sheets from TPD that you might not have known existed and put it all in one place that is accessible anytime and is in over 100 languages. So that's a new tool that any business or property owner has. It also encourages businesses along the corridor to create a business watch, so coming together and working together to make places safer. We have provided emerging district support, so there's about 10 potential districts that we're working with. They're all at varying degrees of being ready for that. And then the completion of the Riverwood Neighborhood Improvement Strategy, that we're finalizing that draft actually right now, so that's very exciting, and then we'll move into the implementation phase for that. If you're not familiar with Riverwood, that's 61st and Peoria area. What's next for us? So program expansion, I know I've been talking about that for a while, but we're closer to that, and in concert with that, we'll launch the district guide. The most exciting thing I have to tell you today is about the National Main Street Conference, and that is coming to Tulsa in 2026. It'll be in April. That event brings $3 million in sales tax revenue to our city and between 2,000 and 4,000 attendees. And these attendees are placemakers from all over the nation, and it brings a spotlight to all of the great things that we're doing as a city. And we get to just brag about our Tulsa districts, but then also the 40-plus main streets that exist in our state. So we get to share our lessons with the rest of the country, and it always generates a lot of positive news media and stories. So more on that to come. Please mark your calendar for that. You're going to want to participate. It's an incredible event, and it's a really good get for Tulsa. I'm very happy that that's coming next year. And that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or.
Go ahead, Council.
So can you go back to the global district
Yeah.
real quick, please?
This one?
'Cause yeah, that one. So on the building rehabs and the businesses, so I know that in the global district, we just opened the Plaza 21.
Mm-hmm.
So does that, I
That
know
is
that
not-
there are several different new businesses
Yeah.
in that Plaza 21. Does that go towards that count of new businesses?
That will go in next year's count.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it is growing.
Oh, yes.
Is that because it's under construction?
It was under construction up until, what was it? The beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I think it was, what are we in right now? April. I think it was February that we went out there, Counselor Bengal?
Which are you talking?
Plaza 21.
Yeah,
Was it March or February that we went out?
It was last
to
month.
tour?
It was
Okay.
last month.
Yeah. So that count is from 2024?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
2024. So these
Perfect.
are the reinvestment infographics from State Main Street. So I like to use these because they're a great just amalgamation of all
Yeah.
of the stats. but they don't follow our same calendar year.
Okay.
They follow a
Okay.
annual calendar year.
And I don't think because it's complete, that
Yeah.
number
Right,
will actually
right.
increase.
It
right?
didn't open until March-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So,
my question. So if it's under construction, the count doesn't go until they actually open?
Correct.
Gotcha.
okay. And so the businesses, the new businesses with the new construction of Plaza Santa Cecilia will go into this
Yes.
year? Okay, so
Or
that
the
number
next year.
is going to
Yeah.
pop. Okay,
Blow up, yep.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Counselor Doug.
Is this data online at the Main Street that we're presented with these numbers?
The infographics are not online yet. They typically present them at Main Street Day at the Capitol, which is happening in a few days. So I'm actually kind of scooping them a little bit. I hope they're not watching this, sorry, State Main Street. But yeah, they'll put them online.
Okay, I'd like to
That's
have.
I can also email them to you
Yeah, I'd
too.
like to have copies for my Route 66 folder. Thank you.
Counselor Richie.
Thank you so much, Sam. And a couple of things. Thank you for the work that you're doing at the river, with Riverwood. You've been with Counselor Bush and I, and you know, we care very deeply about that area and, you know, are excited about reengaging with the community, number one. And then number two, Main Street Day at the Capitol. Representative Fetgetter is, I think his bill is in general order. They're going to create a revolving fund, $2 million for Main Street programs. And so, you know, we're really excited that the state is stepping up to give grants to Main Street programs. My question was about the lease and design guide. Really amazing. Is it in multiple languages?
I don't know that that one is in multiple languages. I believe it's just in English and Spanish.
Okay, so just English and Spanish. All right. When I scanned it, it just came up in English, but there's a Spanish link.
I believe there is.
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just thinking, you know, about East Tulsa, for sure. And that's all from me.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to item 11, discussion with representatives from the Finance Department regarding revenue and forecasting trends for fiscal year 2025 and 26.
Good morning. How you
Corey
doing?
Wise with Budget.
Morning, sir.
I am here to talk about revenue and forecasting, economics and statistics. I'll do my best to keep this exciting for you guys.
We're just not crushing.
Anxiety inducing.
The only one who would be
This is the
excited.
part
is
that I've
Phil.
been most anticipating.
Oh, I'm excited for
The
the
last 6 years,
conversation.
you are the most excited, that's for sure.
I'm excited for the conversation, but based on the projections, or what we already saw from last month, not excited about the actual numbers, so.
We'll get into it the best we can. So, as we have talked before, the way we come up with a lot of our major accounts. Now, the general fund has over 130 revenue accounts in it, so we don't use Forecast Pro for all of them, but we use them for the major ones, sales tax, use tax. And we have data that goes back over 25 years on a lot of these. You can see the other revenue accounts that we also use it for, so a lot of the stuff you'll see, there's a lot of statistics and stuff, and we use Forecast Pro that we've used, I think, 10 years or more for our revenue forecasting. Yeah, I got a lot of intros. So the first thing we use is, so this comes from the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee, this is their March meeting. So this shows their, kind of their forecast for GDP growth. We use this as kind of our national average of where we're gonna be. They're showing somewhere between 1.6 and 1.9% growth for 2006 and 1.6 to 2% growth in 2007. As you can see, we kind of took the middle ground on sales tax for next year of 1.75 and 2.25% growth for use tax. The reason why is because use tax continues to outpace sales tax. They're all kind of the same bucket, just people's preference on where they shop has changed. This is kind of our local economic indicators. We get this from Moody's Data Analytics. We pay a subscription every year to get this data. As you can kind of tell, it's showing the same kind of numbers that the Federal Reserve is also showing, kind of that same 2 to 2.1% growth for the next 2 years. Some of the local trends that has really helped since 2020, you can definitely see Oklahoma's population has grown. You can see that red line definitely pointing up, where from 2006 to 2020, you can see that number was trending lower and lower and heading down and to the right. And ever since COVID, that number has really trended up. And why that's important is if we do have a contraction, but you have an expansion of the population, your sales and use tax can still expand or remain flat in a maybe a low growth environment just due to continued population that we see. Most of the population that we have shown, and I think I talked about this last year, continues to come from Texas and from California. So to get to kind of where we're looking for next year, you can see that our current estimate right now is showing about $463.8 million in total tax. This is all funds. This is not general fund, but all of our funds that these taxes hit. We're proposing to look at about $471.2 million. That's a 1.6% growth rate for all taxes. Franchise tax, as you can see, our current estimate is below our original budget. And we did have a much milder fall and a much milder winter, except for a couple of storms that came through. And that's driven mainly by PSO and ONG taxes. So if consumption is down, their revenue is down. If their revenue is down, then their tax is down, correct? So we're kind of forecasting next year to be back to where the original budget was, and that was all driven by our data model Forecast Pro that kind of gave us that projection. If I'm going too fast, I can slow down, just let me know. So enterprise funds, I think you have a 2:30 meeting about this, but I'll just kind of get into, we use the rate models that we get from water and sewer, storm model, and TARE. So these are just all 44 level accounts. These are all just charges for services. So they provide that information to us, we put it in the budget, and then only the minor things like other revenue and perhaps interest income that we'll get involved with them, but most of their stuff is driven strictly off the rate models that they provide us. Franchise, as we've talked about, has been down this year, largely of what I've already talked about. You can also see we use Forecast Pro for these, except for right-of-way. We use a 12-month rolling average for that. ONG and PSO were both down. Obviously, we're forecasting next year get back to the FY25 budget levels based off our modeling. Obviously, cable TV keeps kind of dropping due to cord cutting. That is a trend that we have seen since 2020. It just keeps going down and to the right. And then public ways is obviously driven all by PSO, which is all we're trying to do is just get right back to that budget level. So this is comparing where we think we're going to end the year to where we're going to propose it for next year. And that gets us back to that $30.4 million for franchise tax, an increase of 6% from this year. The hardest one to forecast. As you can see, our budget this year is $23.4 million. And we're doing $42.5 million in interest income. We do our best. It is pretty much signaled and driven by what we get out of the FOMC. They tell us they're going to do 4 rate cuts. We forecast 4 rate cuts. Clearly, they did not do that. And we are showing that they projected in the March meeting that they're going to look to 2 to 3 more interest rate cuts coming into next year. You can see right now where the bottom chart, that is the Fed Funds futures. And right now it's 75 basis points below where they are, so they're showing a 75 basis point cut, so more in line with that three interest rate cuts of 25 bips. I think right now we're at 2.61% on our total portfolio interest. We took that down to 1.97. That's that happy medium between the 50 basis points and the 75 basis points cut. So that is a 24.8% drop of this year, and that could change. I mean, I remember in 2020, we took it to 0, and we were the opposite of where we are today, being up almost $20 million. So it's very volatile and very hard, like I said, to forecast.
FOMC?
Federal Open Market Committee. Hotel motel taxes, we get this from Visit Tulsa. I reach out to Patty. She has a little bit better local knowledge. Most of the stuff that we get is national data. So she can kind of refine it a little bit better for Tulsa. It's pretty flat. You can see it's only 0.5% growth for next year versus our estimate. But like I said, we reach out to them and work with them. That way we're kind of in lockstep with them and they're not expecting a number that we're not forecasting or vice versa. So kind of, in summary, just wrapping it up, so kind of like, how have we done? This line shows typically, except for 1 year, that we have underperformed in 2020 our estimate. And that was the only year. And it's all pretty much been a 2.5% variance. So it's been pretty accurate. It's not perfect, we don't have a crystal ball. But we've done a pretty good job. Dan, who works on my team the last 2 years, has done a really good job. I took it over in 2019, but even before that, we've been fairly accurate. So it gives me good confidence when we do forecast a number. It comes in without a major variance that we have to explain away. Is there any questions that you guys have? This is my last slide, and I will take questions.
We'll get a copy of this, you send it to us?
Yes, yeah, no problem. I think, yeah.
Bill?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions. I
Nothing?
loved it.
I have a question about the hotel motel tax. Can you go back to that slide?
That's if we don't increase it.
So next year being our
Whoop.
centennial, right, for Route 66 and America 250, why would that only be up 0.5%?
I'd have to reach
Why
out to
would
them
that
to get
projection be a little higher?
that answer, but I want to say we lost an event that happened last year that will not happen this year. And off the top of my head, I cannot remember it, but I do know that there was an event that will not be returning that we had last year. Was it the horse, the Arabian horse?
No, I don't think it was that one. It was something, I know what you're talking about. I don't think it was that one. There was something else.
But there
I know
was
you're-
something.
You're right, there was like a convention.
It was pretty significant.
It was something that, it was an event, and I can't, like I said.
And they decided to look
Off
at
the
it
top of my head.
I'll ask
Okay.
Renee.
But there was an event
What's
that
that?
was not returning this year that we were like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but I cannot remember the name of it.
Okay. I can ask.
Bassmasters?
Bass
That was a couple, wasn't that 2 years ago, into the 2024?
I thought they had it last year, didn't they? Or something, that was correct? Was it something?
Who won the Bassmasters Classic last year?
Or it was an NCAA maybe event?
Well, the wrestling was earlier this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was something,
I don't know.
it was a volleyball tournament.
Marissa's gonna find out for us
We can
and follow
find
back
out,
up.
but that's, like I said, Patty, I work real closely with her, and this is what they felt comfortable with when we met in early February, I believe.
Well, it's amazing that one event can have that much of an impact, because I would have thought that would have been more than a 0.5% increase.
And also, was it when was the ice storm?
2021.
When was the Father's Day storm? Sorry.
2023?
2023, okay. That would be bad.
June.
24, yeah.
I don't know. It's just hit or miss, you lose some of those things, so you don't
Get new
generate the same
stuff,
sales
yeah.
tax, but you're gonna generate more sales tax
Yeah.
during the Route 6600, so.
Yeah, we'll see. Counselor Decker.
I'll say the art and culture sector is a major contributor to the economy with very uncertain, volatile funding resources right now. So probably worse than what we saw during COVID, because during COVID, the Fed stepped in to help that industry, either directly or through the state, and that is not happening right now, and the state is actually losing funding too. So when we think about those organizations that activate in the Arts District and in the Arena District and at the PAC, the next year or two, I think you're gonna see some scaling back. Already, celebrity attractions announced next season, they're just doing 5-day runs, whereas like right now, Wicked's coming for 3 weeks. Hamilton came for 3 weeks, that's a very different, hotel, retail, parking situation when you just have a 5-day run. So, just something.
Even for outsiders who are only doing 5 days?
That one might be a little longer, but all the other tours are coming through for just like 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Just something to, I don't know if that was factored into the look ahead, but we might need to do a 90-day or 180-day look once we know what, different sectors are doing, also the athletic stuff. I don't know if that would be adjusted too.
Any other questions or comments?
So we're projecting that revenue, just to make it plainly, we're expecting it to increase like 2.6%.
1.6.
1.6.
1.6,
Okay.
all tax, all funds, yeah.
Okay. In the last slide, I think you had expressed, in general, you all are accurate within the 2.6.
2.5%.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this year, it's gonna be around that 2.5% versus budget again. I think the mayor will talk about it a little bit more this afternoon, but a lot of that was obviously driven by the interest income that we received this year. I mean, it was a big number.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so with that percent increase, which is, I'm just curious how that looks in terms of like inflation, like is that basically almost flat then relative to last year? I'm just thinking of an offset there.
Inflation,
I'm just thinking.
it's tough because we have a lot more, obviously, revenue items than just sales and use.
Of course.
So some items would go up, some went down. That would probably affect a lot more of our expense side, sorry. But on the revenue side, like you probably saw in 2020 when we had that big spike, a lot of that was just the base going up, so our percentage of that base also went up with it.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful.
The Outsiders is 5 days.
Seriously? That's it?
That is a short
Wow.
term.
Well, that
Have to
PAC
camp
is
out.
2,400
That's a bit
seats, so
shocking.
hard to fill.
But you should fill it up then, right?
In this economy, people are paying $8 for eggs, not really, prioritizing their entertainment dollars. Yeah.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 12, travel authorization per council rules and order of business in the estimated amount of $247.60 for Counselor Bush to travel to Midwest City, Oklahoma to attend OML. That'll be fun. That's for registration and mileage.
You can also read the next one. They're
Can I?
travel.
Okay. Travel authorization, item number 13, travel authorization per council rules and order of business in the estimated amount of 100,000, or, sorry.
Congratulations.
100,000, that's a lot. $1,149.39 for Counselor Hall Harper to travel to Omaha, Nebraska to attend the Rebuilding the Village Conference and Revive Black Business Expo to be held May 14th through 15th. You're going to my home.
So Sarah Davis, council administrator. I'll let Counselor Hall Harper tell you about her trip, and I can fill you in on Counselor Bush's. My role in this is kind of like what Chad Becker's role is to tell you if you have enough money in your account. Ultimately, I'm going to say yes, but with caveats, and so I just think it's important to understand those. In your travel account, you do not have any money left this fiscal year, and in the training account. In your overall 53s account, which is what these are in, you do have enough funds. That is only because, though, we don't have a software that we anticipate having next fiscal year, and also savings that we realized from inauguration. If we didn't have those, then you would not be able to do these travel things, so.
Thank goodness we have smart people handling the checkbook. Counselor?
Do we, remind us what our budget is in the travel account and how it breaks out across staff and counselors? Because I can't remember.
So the travel account has $40,000,
Okay.
and that typically is used by counselors. The training account has $4,000, and that is what I typically try to budget for like staff training. But that has been used by the travel.
So the
But
40,
staff have traveled too.
the 40 is not used by staff?
Staff as a function of their job have
Yes.
traveled one time.
Okay.
But that's part of the 40.
Uh,
Or is
no,
it part of the
that
training?
That would be, I would.
They're two different line items.
I understand that. I think what we're trying to find out is 40,000 divided by 9 city councilors, or does it also include a 10th person who may be on staff that travels?
So it could be, so it doesn't, you could put these two into one account. It could be 44, and actually, if I were making up the accounts, I probably would, because it's just easier to do it that way.
Yeah, it's just professional development.
So it probably came out of travel, but functionally, it came out of training. Staff has used very little of training funds. That's thanks in part to the legal department who lets me train on their subscription for continuing education. So, but in the past, this is the first year you actually have reached that maximum. I think what you're actually seeing is you're not functioning with 9 elected officials, you're actually functioning with 13, because the first half of this fiscal year, you had a different set of elected officials.
For the inner city visit.
Yes, so,
Fall.
I see what you're saying.
so there are savings strategies that we can look at in the future, but I'm not doing my job if I tell you you have money in your travel account and you don't.
So roughly, we each would have available about $4,900 or so
Sorta.
for.
When you have new officials coming in, that's why Counselor Bush is traveling, because you have to do that OML training at least one time.
Oh, I know.
So we don't know
I'm
who's
just
coming in, but
generalizing.
still abroad.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, because there's all these offshoots of things that are different. And some people don't go to places, so it
Sometimes
leaves
you can't
some
fly during
extra,
certain months.
some extra money for others who need to go to other places. So I guess, yeah, we just have to be mindful of the
Well,
fact that we have to share the
Yeah,
budget.
I think in the last 2
But it
election
feels-
cycles, OML did a virtual training, and maybe are they not doing that now? Because there
I-
wasn't travel.
I have not seen a
Yeah, this one's
listing for
small.
a
Yeah.
virtual
$250.
training, so, and I failed to go over that, this is that required training that you have to do
Yeah.
in your first year. There is one that will be offered in Tulsa, in July, however, Counselor Bush, we know she's going to be out of town.
Sure.
For that one, this is probably the next closest one,
Yeah.
some of those are pretty far away, actually,
Yes, I-
to go to.
I can do
So,
There
yeah.
may have been virtual during the pandemic,
Mhm,
maybe.
There was.
Yeah.
So generally, we are using it for the 2 chamber events in general.
There's actually 3, the Oklahoma City one, so the.
Advocacy and trips.
The issue with
Advocacy
the
tie-in.
chamber trips is they come with high registration fees.
Yes.
I would guess you
And they
spend
make us pay the
probably-
full amount.
Yeah, that is one, that is one potential contracting future solution, that I've got written down as a possible cost savings.
We'll have to talk about that as we consider hotel lodging tax stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we just divide the council in thirds, and like 3 go to the advocacy day, 3 go to the DC fly-in, and 3 go to the inner city visit.
So just historically, you've, and FY '23, the travel budget was, I think training has remained static, but travel was 30,000, you used 25,000. Traveling was becoming more prevalent, it did increase to 35,000 in 2024. However, you only used 22,000 that year. This year it was 40,000, and this is the year you've actually exceeded it already, but we recouped it from the training account, so.
It's good, we gotta get trained.
I
We just
think-
have to be, we just have to be
Yeah,
mindful.
I think the costs have gone up too, of lodging.
Of
and-
course.
Yeah.
Right, so that's part of what we
Well,
made
and
those
interest, I mean,
adjustments.
we need to go to these
Flights,
things.
yeah.
Advocate, learn, bring new ideas back.
Granted, it's very offset by the benefits.
I do believe Counselor Hall Harper's registration fee was donated by the thing for her trip. So there's a cost savings.
And you speaking in it, in
Yes,
Brenham,
yeah.
She's kind of,
I
it's
just,
too big deal.
when we do this software cost that I anticipate next year, that we anticipated this year, that it's just that process isn't complete, so you won't realize it this year. That will create a significant space in this budget, so we won't have this kind of flexibility next year.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one thing on
Yes,
a
sir.
different agenda item.
Yes, sir.
So the lease booklet is going to be translated, it already is translated into
Into
Spanish, and then it's going to be translated into Hmong and
Zomi?
Zomi or
Okay.
Burmese.
I was
So
confused.
It just takes a little bit
Yeah,
longer.
I was confused if that was sitting on the Global District website or if it was on the city website for all entrepreneurs
I think it's
to
on the
access.
Global District
Yeah.
website.
But it seems like
but
it's written
Could that
more.
be added to our shared drive too, to disseminate to
It's
people in
on
the?
globaldistrict.org.
But it's really for the whole city.
That's what if we put
Like
it
the
into the.
information,
Yeah,
and maybe the FEC.
I think so.
Well,
I
I
haven't
think
looked at it
she had
yet.
implied
Yeah,
that
if you-
basically they had,
They created
Yeah.
it,
Creative, but it's a good citywide
Right.
resource.
but
so
it
we can
doesn't look
send-
like it's
But try to read it in
specific to the
Spanish.
Global
No,
District.
it sounds
Right.
like we can centrally locate it some
Anyway,
places, and that was
I
begging me to say
digress.
the word SharePoint, because I don't like Microsoft
Only
Office.
for East also. Only for East also.
I guess, leases are different there.
okay. If there's no other questions or comments, item number 14, we are adjourned. Thank you. Please.